Yeah, so you can
What's
go
the topic
first if
again?
you.
Wait, what
The
topic is
topic
it?
is yeah, Blackbeard versus Kaido.
Okay, so Kaido is stated to be the world's strongest creature. Obviously, creatures inclusive to humans, and strongest means to be stronger than another character. So, in virtue of that, he's stronger than Blackbeard.
Yeah, so the issue would be that I don't think possessing a title would put him above any character via what's actually shown from the series. Seeing as that when he fought Odin, he also had this title of being the strongest, yet wasn't stronger than
He
Odin.
didn't.
You said what?
He didn't have the title last he fought Odin.
Yeah, like he had the title of like being the strongest.
No,
I
he
can get
didn't.
that. Yeah, I can get it for you. Just let me get the scans
Are
real
you
quick.
talking about what King said?
No, the statement I'm referring to is like that book statement.
Okay.
Yeah, but to finish the argument, um, we see against Odin, he pretty much almost lost against him and only won because of an outside interference, which shows that despite having this said quote unquote title, this didn't give him like a superiority over
We
somebody.
don't. We don't. We don't know whether or not he would have lost the one.
We verbatim see it as Odin was able to cut his neck and would have finished it if it wasn't for this outside
How do
interference.
we? How do we know that? Okay, it's from my recollection. It's similar to the instance between Kaido and Luffy on the rooftop where the CP0 guy interrupted as well, and the betrayal behind that was Kaido would have had a good fight if it wasn't for the interruption. So it seems like it's that kind of instance where, it would have been a good fight. It would have had a good conclusion of a fight if no one interrupted. But obviously, the implication there would be, well, we don't know what would have happened, but you can send the scans if you want.
Yeah, so just for clarification, you're saying that we don't really know that and that it's just like Kaido not having a good fight or not having enjoyability within the fight.
No, yeah, I think the narrative behind it is that he didn't enjoy the fight. But do you want to send the scans?
Yeah, I'll just get this games real quick.
Yo, are you sure you have the scans? Like,
Yeah, I was like talking to my mom, but yeah, I just
okay.
found this game. My bad. Yeah, so it's just right here. Um, it's yeah, check this games chat. So right here, Kaido possessed the title of the strongest creature in despite having this factor, he still would have lost to Odin if it wasn't for that outside interference. We can get into like the him and like
That's not
having
how
Jordan.
English works, bro. Like, give is it done yet? Hold on. Wait, guys, do you think it's done?
Harvey, no, she looks.
My bad. All
Yeah,
right.
so
Anyways, the point is like, imagine, you know who Eddie Hall is, right?
yeah, I know who Eddie Hall is.
Yeah, like the world's strongest man. Like, imagine if someone's like, oh yeah, this is imagine like a documentary of him, and like he's a toddler, all right, and they're like, this is the world's strongest man, Eddie Hall, playing with Legos. Like, obviously, at the time, he's not. Um, at the time of him playing with Legos, he's not the world's strongest man, but we can still use his title to refer to him. So titles can be used as reference. So I don't really think the scan means anything.
So you're just saying like when it's referring to this instance, it's not actually describing this like that's in his title, but just referencing him with this title at an
Yeah.
early age. Yeah,
Yeah.
just give me 1 second. Hold on.
Okay. Should not have made it on the girl, bro. Bro, truth, I don't know about you because you're not the Russian man. No, bro. No, bro.
Okay, yeah, no, I misread this guy. It's referring to like his current self. That's fine. Um, the argument was still just follow through things like we have like other examples. Such a thing like we thought what is it, Big Mom and consider
He
the
can be
fact
relative to Big Mom. I don't see the issue.
okay, yeah. So
In
if
his base.
he's yeah, so if he's relative to base yeah, hold on. Yeah, so if he's relative to like base Big Mom, then that would just defeat the entire argument.
If he's relative to Big Mom in his base,
Yeah, things that Idol like from what I've seen, like he has statements of being the quote unquote world's strongest creature or the strongest in his base. But if he's fighting high def with like another person, that just directly goes against it.
I don't
So
think it's. I think whenever characters have a title attached to them, it's probably referring to their like the fullest extent of their combative ability. So, for example, when Mihawk's carrying that like small, that like it's not like this small. It's like how small was it? It's like I can't find it. Whatever, like when he's carrying like this like little knife against Mihawk, whatever. Um, no, against Zoro. It's like obviously he's not the world's strongest swordsman when he carries that knife against Zoro, right? And it's the same thing against base Kaido. It's like he's obviously not base. He's obviously not world's strongest creature when he's base. Like
I
obviously.
disagree with that. That doesn't interrupt the argument because for one, like that analogy itself is just analogous as but when we see Mihawk, he always has these statements when he has the like sword. But for Kaido, he has these statements for all of his forms, his base form, his hybrid form, and his cyber form. So it doesn't actually interrupt the argument.
So if actually Rick's pretty good. Damn, I like it to medium well. So, anyways, with Mihawk, so if Zoro said something like, "Oh yeah, I'm fighting the world's strongest swordsman right now," and Mihawk was using a butter knife, do you think that means that even whilst he's using the butter knife, he's the world's strongest swordsman?
I don't see the relevance towards like just going against my
It's
argument.
relevant because it seems like when characters have this title that refers to their strength, it refers to the full extent of their strength.
Well, I disagree with that. Like, I don't like just show me like consistent examples of when characters
I gave you like one example with like the Mihawk and Zoro thing. Like,
But that's already some precedent, so
obviously
that's not
with
gonna help
your
the issue
kind of like
base.
with your interpretation, you have to commit yourself to saying Mihawk at all times when he's fighting someone, even when he's holding back, he's still the strongest swordsman. But that's
Well,
obviously absurd,
no,
right?
I don't because like yeah, can we get a swim on trip real quick? We're gonna get a swim on trip. Yeah. So as I've been explaining the entire time, what your argument is doing is just for one disanalogous, as I've already agreed that
Yeah.
whenever like Mihawk is shown, like he always has statements that are in reference or index to that of like his black blade, not that of like his
Wait,
tiny
so hold
blade.
on. You think that there are statements that say, "Oh yeah, Mihawk's the strongest swordsman, but only when he has a black blade"? Do you think that statements that exist like that?
No, but that's what we can just like entitle the statement
Okay.
in reference to that with his sword, not to like just like little tiny sword. But I'm
Okay.
saying for Kaido, yeah, hold on.
Well,
I'm saying for Kaido though, he has a multitude of statements that say, yeah, his base strength, his base form is that of like the strongest creature, instead of that the strongest. Save the first recording.
okay. Do you wanna repeat
Um,
your point, or shall I continue?
yeah, so for the recording, we have to read this because somebody stopped it. My point. Well, do you want to like clarify my point one more time, or like
Yeah.
because
So
it's
your point was
yeah,
that Kaido
I'll
is the
finish the
strongest
point.
creature,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
regardless of the form he's in, right?
yeah. Via the statements that we
Okay.
have. Yeah,
Um, I can accept your argument and say that it leads to a contradiction, right? And be
least
like,
a
okay,
contradiction.
well, if it's the case that he's relative to Big Mom in his base and he's the strongest creature, then obviously he's not the strongest creature.
Well,
Um,
yes, that's
but
the
then
whole.
that only gets us to a point where the author is being inconsistent. But obviously, authors have the goal of being not inconsistent, and authors want to give consistency to the story. So it seems like the interpretation that creates a contradiction or an inconsistency is yours. But with my interpretation, there is no contradiction. So mine just seems to be more theoretically virtuous.
Well, so just for clarification, you're saying that with my interpretation from the series, it leads to a inconsistency with the author and a contradiction.
Yeah.
Via yeah, if base Kaido is the strongest, then him going relative to somebody else will lead to a contradiction. Or am I getting it right, or am I
Yeah,
wrong?
it'd be like the same thing as saying like an injured whitebeard that fought Akainu, or like injured whitebeard that fought Blackbeard is the world's strongest pirate. But like trivially, that version of whitebeard, no one's gonna grant that that version of whitebeard is the world's strongest pirate version of whitebeard. Or let's say if whitebeard didn't use his fruit, most people would grant that he's no longer the world's strongest pirate when he's not using this fruit. Just because if he was to accept that, then a character that we can scale above him when he's not in that certain form, right? And it's the same thing with fucking Kyle. Like it causes a contradiction with the title, which is obviously true.
Well, again, for the Whitebeard thing, that's just not analogous, as Kaido was never shown to ever be that weakened. And secondly, this wouldn't lead to an inconsistency or like any contradiction. That's the whole entire point from my interpretation from the series is that okay, simply having this set title does not lead to being over a combatant. So, if my interpretation of the series, all the author does is just simply back that up by giving Kaido these titles, but also not having these titles place him above every single character from the verse.
Yeah, but then
He
that's
is
the thingy.
hold on. I can make this consistent when we look at other examples, because Oda commonly does this. For example, with Mihawk, he states that Mihawk is like the strongest swordsman. He's prescribing Mihawk a title that will place him above any and all swordsmen. Yet he also double backs and states that Shanks is like Mihawk's rival and that they fought countless times. Or for example, with Whitebeard and Roger, they're both stated to be the strongest pirates, yet they still fight relative to one another. Or again with the Admirals, the Admirals are stated to be like the strongest Marines, yet an old Garb who's also a Marine fights relative to the Admirals. So within my worldview interpretation, it's consistent that Oda does these things. It's not lead to a contradiction.
Bro, the examples you gave, it's like characters fighting relative to a character that has a title. That does no way, or that does in no way, shape, or form contradict the idea of those titles being true. So I don't see it how that's consistency building. And then
Well,
with
it
the
would
thing you said,
because the
wait,
whole
hold
point
on.
of this. Wait,
Wait,
hold on,
hold on.
hold
You
on,
made, you
hold
made
on,
two
hold on.
points, sure, sure. You made
All
two
right.
points, sure. And with the first point you made, The issue there would be is that the title would be meaningless. Like obviously, if Oda wants to like make a title not be true, he would go out of his way and say, "Oh yeah, this title is a rumor." Or like in every single instance where the title is being referenced, the author would put it in quotations. He'd say it's a rumor and these kinds of things. But obviously, if there are some instances where the title is not being portrayed to be a rumor, then it seems to be the oh my god, sorry, it seems to be the case that the title is not a rumor. The title is true, and obviously, if it's true that Kaido is the world's strongest creature, then it's true that he's above all these other characters. I don't know how it can be the case that the title can be true, yet false at the same time. That's like definitively a contradiction.
Well, no, it's not a contradiction. It would just simply be that the title is true in a sense that, for example, Mihawk can be the world's strongest, but it would be false in a sense that, okay, well, because like he's the world's strongest, or because like he's the strongest animal or the strongest creature, this doesn't then mean that he wouldn't have a combative
You,
ability.
you do
He wouldn't have like a
understand.
combative thing. Like, hold on. It would only be a contradiction if it would be the okay. Um, the title is true, but at the same time, my bad. Yeah, it's just simply stating the negation of the title, while also stating the assertion of the title. That's not what I'm doing. So that is also wrong. To respond to the first point, you mentioned how all the examples are brought up don't support the conclusion or don't support how it's like a contradiction or whatever, or don't support my worldview. The whole entire point is that characters can have these set titles, but these titles do not give them superiority over the person, and Oda consistently does this. So it does support what I'm saying, but you can respond now.
The issue there would be is that like your interpretations like infinitely less like parsimonious because you're saying the title, although it says he's the world's strongest swordsman, what it means is that it's possible because Khan is a modal term. It's possible for him to be the world's strongest swordsman. Now, like trivially, it's possible for like basically any character to be the world's strongest swordsman. It's possible for Kaido to be the world's strongest swordsman. So like it's not informing us of anything. Number one, and number two, it doesn't seem to like be consistent with what the title means like verbatim, right? Like the words themselves don't tell us anything about possibility. It doesn't say, Roy strongest swordsman. We look at the words. The words don't say, oh yeah, it means he can be the Roy strongest swordsman. The words just, tell us a descriptive fact about Mihawk or whoever holds the title. So like, like it just seems like a little bit of gibberish from you. But
Well,
yeah.
you didn't respond to anything I said. You just repeated yourself in new different
Okay.
words.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just simply clarify my points one more time. If you want to attack, you can. If not, we can just move on. So just to clarify one more time, the argument is simply that Kaido can have the descriptive factor of being the strongest creature, right? That can be true. But what is false, or what could be false, is that, okay, despite having this descriptive factor of being the world's strongest man, for example, we can use Eddie Hall. Eddie Hall can have the title of being the world's strongest man, right? He can be the physically strongest man, but that doesn't then mean that he can then go into like an MMA ring, like a boxing ring, whatever, and then beat the best boxer in the world because he possesses the title, right?
Uh,
Yanni's like, oh yeah, that's a contradiction.
well, yeah.
Not
I
a
mean,
contradiction. Well, no, it's only a contradiction if it's he's the world's strongest man and he's not the world's strongest man. That's not what my view is stating.
okay.
My view is stating, yeah, okay. So, then to clarify the Oda point, I'm pretty sure I've already explained why that's just more in favor to mine. You keep saying like it's less parsimonious. That's not true. You only have like one scan. I have more consistency with my arguments, so it would just again be more likely. Do you feel like you attacked everything?
You made a new point, so I'm gonna respond. But
Oh, what was the new
the
point? Eddie Hall?
the new point was I guess kind of like the Eddie Hall thing, but
Well, that's what
also
I've been saying
like
the entire time.
unless I misunderstood your argument, your initial argument because you said this
Probably.
verbatim was that Mihawk can be the Rosh strongest swordsman, and that's the inference we can make from his title. But
Oh, that's not
like
what I'm saying. No,
obviously,
that's not what I'm
I mean
saying.
you said that verbatim, but like if I didn't understand that
Well,
point, then it's okay. I'll respond to the new point or like the
yeah,
new
just run to
understanding
the
of the
new
point,
point.
whatever. Okay, so from what I'm hearing or understanding is that you have like a what you're saying is his title can be true just not in a combative sense, and then I'd need you to motivate that belief because seemingly again just like off of the word they use, it seems as if it is a combative title, strongest seems to be this
Well,
combative phrase and it seems to be indexed to his one-on-one ability. Like whenever they use the title's followed by this mention of him being the strongest in a one-on-one, and that seems to be like I'm saying seems to be a lot, it seems to be the correlation between those two things. So I need you to respond to that, and
Well,
then with the consistency you give. Again, you just gave a consistency of characters being relative to characters that hold a title, and with the Eddie Hall thing as well. You said Eddie Hall can be the strongest man physically, but not the strongest like boxer or MMA fighter. Well, trivially, yeah, because the strongest
well,
MMA
that's not what I
fighter
said. No, no, that's
means.
not what I meant. No, no, that's not what I said.
Bro, you said that, bro. You said word for word that
No,
Eddie Hall
that's
can be the
what
strongest
you're
man physically,
interpreting.
but
No,
it
no,
doesn't mean that he's the strongest boxer, right? Is that what
no,
you said?
that's not what I said. No, that's you just wanted to try. I said he can be the strongest, right? He can have these attributes that make him the strongest. That doesn't then mean that because he's the strongest, he can then beat these like top tier boxers or top tier MMA fighters. That's what I said.
Okay, so you just repeated what I said. Okay. Um. Okay.
But
The thing there would be okay. Well, you're saying that him being the strongest man doesn't mean he's the strongest like MMA fighter. So it doesn't mean he can beat these like top tier MMA guys. That's perfectly fine. But obviously, the argument. Well, so I'm gonna ask you a question, and after that, I'm gonna like give a point. Other way around, whatever. So the issue there would be I'm taking Raw Strongest Creature to be a combative title. I'm taking it to mean that he can beat these top tiers. You need to then give me an interpretation of Raw Strongest Creature that seems to be more consistent. What does it mean to you?
yeah, so I'll answer that question once I respond to the earlier points that you made. So just for clarification, you asked me to prove earlier, like like a combative thing,
No, I asked you to prove that it's not a combative thing or a combative title.
non-combative title. Yeah. So for one, again, within my worldview, I'm not assuming or making or any claiming any distinction between this being a combative title and it not being a combative title. The claim is that yeah, it is a combative title, but because it's a combative title, does not lead to it being over diverse or anybody else. That's the claim. Also, you agreed to that, so I don't have to prove it since you already agreed to it in the first recording, which I have said.
Hold on, I never. Wait, so you think I agree to the idea that the title can be true combatively, but it doesn't mean it's above every other character? You think I agree to that?
Um, you agreed to like him having like combative feats that would go against this, but then it like
I
leads like a
mean,
contradiction. So
whether
you agreed
whether
to
or
the
not
first
those
one, but not
feats,
the second one.
hold on, whether or not those feats go against it
Mhm.
is in question. Number two,
Well,
I kind of like forgot to respond to this, but like 5 points ago, you said that you don't think Kaido. Oh, sorry, you don't think the white bit analogy is analogous because Kaido wasn't weakened to that extent. But like you missed a crucial point, which was regarding his devil fruit. I asked you verbatim, do you think that Whitebeard will still be the strongest man if he was not using any weapons, including his devil fruit? If Whitebeard was like punching and kicking niggas, right? And like he decided to not use his Naginata, and somebody went relative with Whitebeard, right? That like the version of Whitebeard that's not using any combative ability aside from martial arts, do you think that would make them relative to the world's strongest pirate? If yes, then like that's obviously absurd.
yeah. The issue with that is that if that form of Whitebeard has statements of being the strongest, then yes. If not, then no. I'm saying that the version of the counter that I'm using do have these statements, so that supports what I said of it being
No, but
non.
obviously, um, I'm interpreting those statements to not be referent to that specific version of Kaido.
Well, now we're
Just hold on,
backtracking.
hold on. Simply because of the example I gave, because Whitebeard in his base form, without using any Delphi abilities, etc., is also stated to be the Rosh strongest pirate. Right? It seems to be inclusive of their entire arsenal. Right? Obviously, I don't know why like just kind of like lying. And then also with
I'm
the
not right.
feats that go yeah, you're all right. It's obviously right.
If that's what you believe, but go on.
And then that's the point I want to respond to first. And then
Okay,
number
what's the
two,
point?
when you say that Kaido's title is combative, then like, can you explain to me what it means? What does the title mean?
Yeah. So again, before I get to that, I'll respond to the first point that you made. Again, just for clarification, because I kind of keep forgetting it. Um, let me remember it. Hold on, hold on. Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, once again, like you're just backtracking, as you already agreed that this version of the code that I am using does have these statements, but your means of going against is like proof by contradiction. So once again, you're backtracking. So like, I'll just ask you, like, what rebuttal will we be using? Will it be, um, like, will it be like you not believing that he's like this version of code is not in reference to these statements, or this version kind of does have these statements, but my interpretation leads to a quote unquote contradiction because now you're like
Why can't I
proposing.
use both? Why can I say even if it refers to that version of Kaido, then there's this absurdity. But then we also have reason to not believe that it does refer to that version of Kaido through this analogy, which I was doing the whole time. So
I feel like that would be conflicting, but I'll still address it. So again, just one more time because I kind of forgot it. Can you repeat the second part of your rebuttal that you're going with right now?
yeah, it was like the whole Whitebeard thing, right? Like since Whitebeard has statements of him being the world's strongest pirate, obviously I think you think that it's combative, right? So obviously since Whitebeard has these statements of being the world's strongest pirate, in instances where he's not using his arsenal, do you think that means that without his arsenal he's the world's strongest pirate?
If the statements were always made in reference to the life his arsenal, and he's somebody's finding it without his arsenal, then no, I don't think that would make them
Wait, hold
less.
on, I couldn't hear what you said. What do you say?
Yeah, so I'm saying, if the statements in this analogy are in reference to a Whitebeard with his what is it arsenal, and somebody fights a Whitebeard, a weakened Whitebeard without his arsenal, then no, I don't think that would backscale to the
Yeah,
strongest.
but the issue there is, hold on. I think the reason why you're saying that they refer to Kaido as the raw strongest creature in his base form is because the image that they use when they call him the raw strongest creature is him in his base form, right? But then the thing that would be, oh, it's not in my teeth, whatever. The thing that would be, okay, the images that we see of Vibe when they call him the raw strongest pirate are images of Vibe in his base form, not using his arsenal or not using his Naginata, right? So does that then mean that, because of the images they use, does that mean that it's indexed to the specific version of the person in the image, or is it rather, quite obviously indexed to their entire like holistic combative ability, which seems to be what's more consistent?
Yeah, again for Kaido, I do think it's gonna be in reference to the version that's been portrayed in the image. Seeing as that we have other images of Kaido, and these said statements also apply to those different images.
Hold on,
For
did you answer my
Whitebeard,
question? Like my other question?
for Whitebeard, I don't think that would just be analogous to what I'm saying, as he doesn't have multiple forms.
Yeah, but he has an arsenal. The point is, we've seen Whitebeard, right, be called the world's strongest pirate when he's not using his arsenal. So does that now mean that the world's strongest pirate title is something that's, what do you call it, referring to him without his arsenal? Like that's the question I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah, I already answered that twice already.
It's a yes or no question. Just give the answer. You can. It's not hard to say yes or no.
Um, yeah, I'll just say one more time. If the statements are in reference to that of with his arsenal, and we see a picture, and the statement is made without his arsenal, then will we already contextually
Bro, I don't
assume
like.
no?
Bro,
And the answer would
if
just be
if
no.
you're gonna answer yes or no question, that the question shouldn't start with if. It should start with yes or no. Like
Well, that's how I answer. But yeah, I just said no for the past few times already. So I don't want to ask you
no.
again.
Okay. So do you have any instances of them showing Whitebeard's title with whilst he's using his arsenal?
You said what?
Yeah. So do you have any images of him being referred to as the world's strongest pirate with his arsenal?
Wait, repeat the question one more time because I
Do you
might have
have
missed.
any instances of
No,
Kaido
before that.
being
Before that.
okay? The question I asked you initially was, if it's the case that Whitebeard is called the world's strongest pirate without him using his arsenal, does it refer to a version of Whitebeard without his arsenal? Is that version of Whitebeard the world's strongest pirate?
Oh yeah. No, because the strongest is only contextualized to his arsenal. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. You said the strongest is contextualized to his arsenal. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what we know him to be the strongest because of like his double fruit, his hockey, his sword. Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. What makes a character strong is the arsenal, right?
Um. Yeah,
Trivially,
like
like
the blood,
obviously, yeah. Okay.
like their arsenal and like their physical strength. Yeah, their physical
Okay,
capabilities. Yeah.
I count that to be part of the arsenal. So when a
Okay.
character's
Yeah.
missing part of their arsenal, you would say, okay, well, this the statement of them being the strongest is probably indexed to them when they're using their combative ability. When they're using the actual arsenal. It doesn't make sense for it to be attributed to them when they're missing parts of the arsenal. You'd agree to that as well?
Um. No, I don't know why I would agree to that.
Yeah, because it doesn't give a capture of the character's strength. Like when we describe Kaido's strength, we're aiming to describe the extent of his abilities. But obviously, If Kaido is missing parts of his arsenal, then we're not describing the extent of his abilities. We're just describing him in that specific time period. But him in that time period doesn't give us an accurate representation of him using his full abilities.
Yeah, that would only be accurate if we only had statements that were in reference to life its full abilities and
Why?
not
Wait,
statements
why?
that are in
Wait,
reference to
why?
his partial
Why
abilities.
is that
That's the
prerequisite?
point.
Why would I agree to that?
You said what?
Why would I agree that to be? Why would I agree for that to be a prerequisite? Like the
Yeah, because that's what the whole entire point that we're debating on is contingent upon. I'm literally saying the reason why you're wrong is that we have statements of him being the strongest and partial of all of his abilities. So why would I agree to it only be reference to his full abilities for a character who only has statements of being in
okay, yeah,
reference to
because
his partial
I already
Like
told
we're
you.
just going
It
circular.
it seems like the title's being like describing Kaido's strength, and it seems like it wouldn't be an accurate representation of Kaido's strength if it's the case that they're not describing him using his abilities or describing him
But
when he's
why?
missing part of his arsenal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
because his
yeah,
strength. Hold on, yeah, hold on. Because
yeah,
hold
stop,
on,
stop, stop, stop,
bro.
stop,
You
stop,
asked
stop,
me a
stop.
question.
I'm
You
about
said
to
why,
explain it. I'm
bro.
about to explain it. I'm about to
You said
explain it.
why. Explain
Okay,
what you
go
said
on, go
why.
on. Yeah, go,
Okay.
go on.
Yeah, okay. So obviously earlier you agreed that a character's strength is composed of their arsenal, given that like Arsenal also increase physical strength. So since a character's strength is composed of their arsenal, if a character is missing parts of their arsenal, right, describing that version of them when they're not when they are missing parts of the arsenal wouldn't be describing the character's strength, it'd be describing parts of the character's strength, which is obviously not what the title is doing.
Yeah, so again, that just wouldn't be entirely accurate for Kaido, as Kaido does have parts of like his arsenal missing, but he still has like these strongest attributes tied to him. One of like Kaido's like main attributes about him is his insane physical durability and toughness that his base form possesses, which the strongest is what is it attributed to? Or like his overall compatibility. Like he has these set attributes which makes him the strongest. He has these other attributes in his Zofu form that also make him the strongest, or just even take his current strongest abilities to an even greater, higher level of being the strongest. Like it's what I just said earlier. Like different forms, different strongest. It's just not analogous, bro.
Different forms, different strongest.
Um,
What?
well, yeah, yeah. What I mean by different strongest is that like he just becomes even more stronger. That's it, bro. Like don't take it too literal.
Okay, so he becomes even okay.
Just even more
And you're
stronger,
saying the
bro.
reason why it's increasing the base Kaido is because of the images they use with base Kaido. But you do realize that even then, right? Because he's missing or because he's not using parts of his okay, because he's missing parts of his arsenal, right? Even if he has some of the factors that make him strong, the reason why those factors are extremely high, or a part of that reason, is because of his hybrid form. His hybrid form elevates his stats even further. So to say that Kaido that doesn't have his stats elevated is the world's strongest creature would be fake or would be false because the version of Kaido that has his stats elevated is obviously stronger than that version of Kaido, right?
Yeah, so it would just be without like actually yeah, when these statements are made, they're not even talking about like his higher devil fruit forms. Like these statements were made before like his devil fruit were even introduced or even known.
Okay, wait, that's
Hold
fine.
on,
Like the
yeah, hold on,
describe
hold
it.
on,
Okay.
hold on. Yeah, hold on. So it means that the story itself is describing to us that okay, before Kaido even uses his devil fruits, he still can be classified as the strongest. So that point just gets
Wait,
made.
I don't see the difference there.
You
I
just
don't
think
I don't know
you
how
just
those
see
two
that.
things correlate. That's perfectly consistent with my interpretation, which is they're seeking to describe the full extent of the character. Obviously, the character possesses those abilities, and because he possesses those abilities that make him the strongest, he is the strongest even when he's not using those abilities. You do understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Repeat it one more time because my Wi-Fi lagged out.
Okay, yeah. So they're describing the full extent of these characters' abilities, right? And then because they're describing the full extent of his ability, even when he's not using those abilities, it's appropriate to call him the strongest. But at the time when he's not using those abilities, he wouldn't be the strongest, and that seems to be what's consistent. Also,
But why is
to
that consistent?
understand what you're saying, right? Because I might not have to
Yeah.
even address this. But to understand what you're saying, um, the title may have a different meaning that doesn't put him above every other character, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying the title can be true. It just doesn't put them above every character based off what we're
Yeah,
showing.
I don't understand what it would mean for the title to be true and not put him above every character. Like what? Like the title would have to mean something
Yeah,
other
like,
than what
okay,
it
yeah,
seems to mean.
yeah, okay. So the title could be true in the sense that, yeah, for example, let's say Kaido has a statement. that says that he's the strongest because he has like the highest physical durability from the verse, right? That statement could be true that yeah, his durability is greater than everybody, but it's because of that. That doesn't then mean that he would then beat everybody because he has the highest durability. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Okay, so hold on. You think the title is referring to his durability, right?
Um, that's what it seems to be like. It refers like his like
Okay.
endurance or durability or things of that
And I
nature.
gave a consistency of them using the title to refer to his one-on-one ability, right?
His one-on-one ability. Actually, yeah, I think it's just in reference to like his durability or one-on-one ability. Because even if it's in reference to that, it can still be true that okay, in majority of fights, Kaido can still beat everybody, but that doesn't mean he's going to beat every single body. You know, like it can still be true.
The point is like the one-on-one ability thing is saying that in a one-on-one bet on Kaido, like that's the point. So it's saying that all else equal, Kaido is most likely to beat any other character.
You said what?
The one-on-one thing means that uh in a one-on-one bet on Kaido, he's saying that like, oh yeah, Kaido is most likely to beat any other character. You should always bet him regardless of who he is.
Based off him beating a bunch of unknown fathers. Like, it supports what I'm saying because Kaido has consistently won and he's 1v1 and he seems unbeatable. He seems unbeatable. We're just gonna continuously place our bets on him, right? But that doesn't then lead to the conclusion that okay, well because he's done these things that he can now beat everybody like Blackbeard, Akinu, Singster, these gods of the verse that he can
Hold
just
on.
quote unquote magically beat now.
If the title refers to him being like him likely beating every other character, right? You do understand what that does, right?
I think this is a false likelihood. It's simply that. Like I don't
It's
think
okay. So hold on. How can the title be true but its reference be false? Doesn't make sense.
you said what?
How can the title be true but its reference be false?
Reference? You saying reference or reference?
Reference.
What is? Can you define that within the debate?
So I'll just take it to be like something that a specific term is referring to. So for example, the president of the United States. That's a title, and then the reference
Mhm.
would be Donald Trump.
Oh, repeat like the last Donald Trump part. I got
Yeah, like
sidetracked.
the title there would be like the president and hell yeah, والله خالد خالد. I'm sorry. Oh, it was very nice, Zaki. Ah, anyway, sorry. Yeah, the title would be president, and the reference would be Donald Trump.
Okay, yeah. So the
It
title
wouldn't
would
make
be
sense for the president to exist, but Donald Trump not to exist because the reference to president is Donald Trump.
okay. So it wouldn't make sense for him to be like the strongest in like a one-on-one fight, but then not have this and not be entirely true. Yeah.
It's
So
impossible for it to be true that he's the world's strongest creature. But since the referent is the one-on-one fire ability, it has to be true that it's also likely he beats everyone in the one-on-one because that's the reference to the title.
yeah, so the one-on-one thing is again, it's a title, right? Titles are based off reputation and like your what is it? Yeah, just reputation and what you've done, right? So all titles can be true to an extent, because like to even earn a title, you have to have done something in order to do that, right? So in order for him to earn a title of being like this unbeatable person in a 1v1 in a one-on-one fight, title would have had to have won uncountable amounts of fight in order for him to gain this top tier likelihood for it, right? But I'm saying that okay, he can have beaten like 90% of the verse in one-on-one fights, right? That doesn't then mean that because of that, he then can be like this unbeatable 10% of the verse. Like that's the whole point. The title can be partially true, but just not be 100% true. Like there's still some falsehood in it because of what
Okay,
we
okay.
just
The,
chemistry
the
see.
thing the thing that would be yeah, okay. All else equal, as in like controlling any other factor, it's likely that he beats um every character in the verse unless you can like point me towards a character that's like more likely to beat him. But then the issue there would be okay, well if it's true that he likely beats every character in the verse, even if you give me a counter example, right, the prior statement being true, like it's likely he beats every character in the verse individually. So it's saying that it's not saying that there are some characters that can beat him, it's saying that in a one-on-one any character that fights him probably will lose. Like that. Like that's what the statement's saying. So it's not saying that like he can beat most people. It's saying that everyone who fights him is likely to lose. By the way, like that's what the thing is saying.
Yeah, and that statement, as I said earlier, will just not be true based off what the likelihood is telling. It's based
Okay,
off based
okay,
on
okay.
facts.
The issue there would be um the title itself is obviously true because the author confirms it because the author states that he's the world's strongest creature verbatim.
Yeah, like I've been saying the entire debate. I agree. The title is true. I just don't think it grants him superiority or win cons over other characters because it would again be demonstrably see via the fight with Big Mom, which he again agreed to. I'll just send the scans to like the judge.
Okay, no, I think we're done. To be honest, I think yeah.
Yeah, let me just like send the scans real quick. Oh yeah, I already did that. Yeah, I'll just save the recording then.